I raised her for 24 years. I paid for everything, her tuition, her car, her apartment, even the deposit for her wedding venue. Then, on her wedding day, I went to her apartment to help with the final details. She looked at me and said, "The wedding already happened. Yesterday. It was just for special people." I turned and walked away, carrying a silence I didn't know how to name. That night I didn't sleep, and by morning I'd made a decision that would change everything. 5 days later my phone rang. "Dad, the rent didn't go through." "What happened?" I paused and said, "Didn't you already tell me who was special?" That was the day she discovered that being special has a cost, and I was done covering it. Thank you for being here with me. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where are you watching from. I read every single one, and it truly means more than you know. And one small note before we continue: some details in this story have been fictionalized for entertainment and educational purposes. This story carries lessons about love limits and the cost of the choices we make. I stood outside my daughter's apartment on a Sunday morning in April holding a box of wedding planning folders I'd saved for 24 years. Magazine clippings of flower arrangements, venue ideas I'd bookmarked, a napkin from Mamma Mia Trattoria where we'd talked about having the rehearsal dinner. I'd woken up early that morning, showered, put on my best suit, the navy one I'd bought specifically for this day. Then I'd changed my mind. Too formal for a pre-wedding visit. I'd switched to khakis and a button-down. Something nice but not overdressed. I wanted to see her before the ceremony, maybe help with last-minute details. That's what fathers do. The Pearl District was quiet. Most of Portland was still asleep, though I could see a few joggers along the Willamette River in the distance. Taylor's building was one of those new high-rises, all glass and steel. The kind that costs more per month than I used to make in a season when I first started Clark Landscape and Tree Care 30 years ago. I'd paid the deposit on this place 3 years back, signed as her guarantor when the landlord wanted proof of income. She'd hugged me that day and said I was the best. I checked my watch. 9:30. Early, but not too early. The wedding was this afternoon, she'd said, Sunday, April 20th. And I'd been counting down the days. I knocked. Footsteps inside. Then the door opened. Taylor Clark. My daughter, 29 years old, stood there in an oversized sweatshirt and pajama pants, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept well. She blinked at me, confused. "What are you doing here?" "Morning, sweetheart." I held up the box, smiling. "I know it's early, but I thought I'd drop these off before things get crazy. I found all the old planning stuff we looked at over the years. Figured we could compare notes. See how close you got to. Raymond, what time does the ceremony start?" I checked my watch again. "I wanted to get there early. Help set up chairs or greeting guests or whatever you need. I know Connor's family is handling most of it, but..." "Raymond, stop." Her voice was quiet. I stopped. Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Did something happen? Is the wedding still on?" She looked down at her bare feet. "The wedding happened." "Okay, good." Relief washed over me. "So it's still this afternoon, then?" "What time should I?" "No," she shook her head. "It happened yesterday." The words didn't make sense at first. "Yesterday, Saturday." "What do you mean, yesterday?" I said slowly. "The wedding was yesterday." She still wouldn't look at me. "Saturday afternoon. It's over." The box suddenly felt heavy in my hands. "But you said Sunday, April 20th. I have it written down. You told me..." I said April," she said. I never said exactly which day." My mind raced back through our conversations. The coffee shop 3 months ago when she'd told me she was engaged. The phone call about keeping it small. The text message, spring wedding, probably April. She was right. She'd never given me a specific date. I'd assumed. I'd marked the 20th on my calendar a Sunday, because most weddings happened on Sundays, didn't they? "Oh," the word came out flat. I got the day wrong. Raymond. That's okay. I forced a smile. These things happen. I should have confirmed. Should have asked more specifically. I adjusted the box under my arm. Well, congratulations. I'm sorry I missed it. How did it go? Was the weather good? It was fine. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Good. That's good. I nodded, trying to keep my composure. Was it at the venue you showed me, the one by the lake, Shamksta? Yeah. Beautiful spot. I cleared my throat. I bet you looked stunning. Did the dress turn out the way you wanted? Raymond, please. Who was there? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Just close family? Or did you end up inviting more people? She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were red. Close family. And some friends. Close family. The words echoed in my head. Your mom was there? I said. Not a question. Somehow I already knew. Taylor's shoulders tensed. Yes, a Pamela Thornton. I said her full name. Your biological mother. The one who walked out when you were 5 years old and didn't call once in 24 years. She's trying, Raymond. Taylor's voice had an edge, now defensive. She reached out. She apologized for everything. She's been going to therapy. I wanted to give her a chance. Now that's good, I said. And I meant it. I did. Everyone deserves a second chance. She's changed. I'm glad. I interrupted gently. I'm glad she's in your life again. I'm glad she got to see you get married. Taylor bit her lip. A tear rolled down her cheek. I wasn't invited, I said. It wasn't a question, but I needed to say it out loud. Needed to hear how it sounded. It wasn't like that. Was I invited, Taylor? She shook her head. No. The word hung between us like smoke. Why? My voice cracked. 24 years. I was there when you learned to ride a bike. When you graduated high school. When you got into college. I paid for your apartment, your car, your... I stopped myself. That wasn't the point. I just want to understand why I wasn't special enough. It was complicated. She was crying openly now. Pamela said she said you'd be upset if you knew she was coming. She said it would cause drama. She said I had to choose, and it was my wedding, so I got to decide who was special. I finished for her. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I set the box down on her doormat. 24 years of wedding dreams in a cardboard box. Magazine clippings from when she was 7 and said she wanted purple flowers. Venue photos from when she was 16 and made me promise I'd walk her down the aisle someday. Even though I wasn't her biological father, she'd said it didn't matter, because I was the one who stayed. The one who stayed. I straightened up. Well, congratulations to you and Connor. Connor Matthews, her husband now. I'd met him exactly twice. Once at a coffee shop when they first started dating, once when they came by my office to announce the engagement. Nice enough guy, real estate agent. But I barely knew him. I hope you'll be very happy together. Raymond, please. I should go. I was already turning toward the stairs. I'm sure you have a lot to do today. Honeymoon to pack, for thank you cards to write. Can we talk about this? I stopped. Looked back at her standing in the doorway in her pajamas, mascara smudged under her eyes. What is there to talk about? I asked quietly. I'm sorry. She choked on the words. I'm so sorry. I know you are. And I believed her. I could see it in her face, the guilt, the regret. But it didn't change what had happened. I just wish you'd been sorry enough to invite me. I walked down the hallway before she could respond. Behind me, I heard her say my name one more time, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The morning air hit me when I stepped outside. Joggers ran past. A couple walked by with coffee cups laughing about something. The world kept moving like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. I sat in my truck for a long time. 20 minutes, maybe more. Just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the apartment building. The box was still up there on her doormat. I'd left it behind. 24 years, and I'd left it all behind. When I finally drove home, my house felt emptier than usual. I walked straight to my study and opened my laptop. My hands moved automatically, opening a new document. The cursor blinked at me, waiting. I typed account closure plan. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then I saved the document and closed my laptop. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing for certain: something had broken that morning. Something I'd spent 24 years building. And I wasn't sure it could ever be fixed. But maybe it didn't need to be. Maybe it was time to stop trying. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, seeing her face in that doorway over and over again, hearing her voice repeat itself in my head. It was my day. I got to decide who was special. The words echoed until they felt carved into the dark. Around 11, I gave up pretending rest would come. I walked down the hall to my study, a narrow room barely large enough for a desk, a filing cabinet, and a bookshelf crammed with landscaping manuals and old photo albums. I turned on the desk lamp and opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet. Behind tax returns and insurance forms sat a cardboard box. Not the wedding folders I'd left at her apartment. This one was older, heavier. Years ago, I'd labeled it in black marker T, important. I lifted it onto the desk and opened the lid. 24 years of my life looked back at me. The first item was a watercolor painting on construction paper stick figures holding hands. Above it, in a teacher's handwriting, Taylor Clark Kindergarten. Me and my dad. She'd been 5 years old 3 months after Pamela Thornton, her biological mother, walked out without a word. I remembered coming home from work one September afternoon and finding Taylor sitting on the porch steps clutching that painting. Teacher said we had to draw our family, she'd said quietly. I'd sat beside her. That's beautiful. There's only 2 people. She looked up at me with wide brown eyes. Is that okay? That's perfect, I told her. Some families are big, some are small. Ours is just right. That same year, I attended my first parent-teacher conference alone, surrounded by couples. Her teacher praised how bright she was. Walking to the truck afterward, Taylor slipped her hand into mine. Raymond, she asked, still unsure what to call me. Are you my real dad? I crouched to her level. I'm the dad who stays. That's the realest kind there is. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. I set the painting aside and picked up the next item, a slightly faded photograph. Taylor on a bicycle I'd spray-painted purple because it was her favorite color. She was 11, grinning so wide her eyes nearly closed, knees scraped and bandaged. I stood behind her, one hand on the seat, running alongside. That afternoon took 3 hours in the elementary school parking lot. She fell 6 times, skinned her knees twice, threw her helmet once, and shouted, I can't do it. Yes, you can, I said. You just haven't done it yet. On the 7th try, she found her balance. I let go and watched her pedal away, wobbling but upright. When she realized she was riding alone, she turned back with pure, unfiltered joy on her face. I would give anything to return to that moment. Next was her high school graduation program. I found her name, Taylor Elizabeth Clark, class of 2014. She was 18. I'd sat in the bleachers that June morning and watched her cross the stage in her cap and gown. When her name was called, I stood the only one in my row and clapped until my hands hurt. Afterward, in the parking lot, she ran to me and wrapped her arms around my neck. Thank you for everything, she whispered, for never giving up on me. I cried right there among celebrating families, not from sadness, but from pride. This bright, kind, determined girl was proof that love mattered more than biology. I'm so proud of you, I said. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied. I believed her. 4 years later came college graduation. I found the photo of us outside Portland State University, her holding her diploma, me in the navy suit I'd worn that very morning, thinking I'd wear it to her wedding. After the ceremony, we ate at Mamma Mia Trattoria. Over pasta, she told me about her student loans, $32,000, and the weight of starting adulthood under that burden. I'll take care of it, I said. Raymond, no. That's too much. You earned your degree, I told her. Start free. She squeezed my hand. I'll pay you back. You already have. I wrote the check the next week. $32,000 from my retirement account. I never told her it pushed my own retirement back 3 years. Some sacrifices aren't meant to be counted. The most recent item was a paint chip labeled Dove Gray. On the back in her handwriting, perfect for the living room. Thanks for helping me paint Raymond. You're the best. 4 years ago, she'd moved into that Pearl District apartment. The walls were cold builder's white. We spent a weekend painting. I took time off from Clark Landscape and Tree Care, something I rarely did. She played music, made sandwiches, laughed when I got paint in my hair. This is nice, she said. Just us, like old times. At the end of the weekend, she hugged me. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'll never have to find out, I said. I'll always be here. I meant it. At the bottom of the box lay a folded piece of construction paper. Stick figures again, more detailed this time. A gray-haired man holding a girl's hand, hearts floating above them. Inside, in her 12-year-old handwriting, Happy Father's Day. You're the best dad ever. Love, Taylor. The year before middle school. The year she still called me Dad. I stared at the words. Best dad ever. When had that changed? When had I gone from best to not invited? Or maybe I'd never been special at all, just convenient. The man who stayed. The man who paid. I folded the card, closed the box, and looked at my laptop. The account closure plan document waited blank. I opened it. The cursor blinked. I typed not in anger but in clarity. For 24 years I'd given without keeping score. I'd believed love required nothing in return. But love had to go both ways. Respect had to exist. If 24 years of showing up wasn't enough, maybe it was time to stop. I typed 3 lines. Cancel all recurring payments. Remove myself as guarantor. Let her figure it out alone. I saved the file, turned off the lamp, and sat in the dark, surrounded by memories that suddenly felt like someone else's life. Tomorrow I'd handle the details. Tonight I mourned what I'd lost. Not my daughter, she would always be that, but the belief that I had ever mattered enough to stand beside her on her most important day. The next morning I woke before dawn. The decision was already made. The sooner I started, the less it would feel like tearing pieces out of myself. I showered, made coffee, and was at my desk by 5:30, a full hour, before anyone else would arrive at Clark Landscape and Tree Care. Our office sat in a 2-story building near the waterfront in downtown Portland. I'd bought it 15 years ago when the business finally became profitable enough to move out of my garage. Morning light crept through the windows as I logged into my computer and opened my banking portal. The document from the night before was still there. 3 simple lines. Seeing them written down had been one thing. Carrying them out was something else entirely. I opened the first account. Rent for Taylor's apartment. $2,100 a month withdrawn automatically on the 1st. I'd set it up 3 years ago when she moved in, told her not to worry that I'd handle it while she found her footing. I clicked Cancel Recurring Payment. A warning box appeared. Are you sure this action cannot be undone? My finger hovered. I pictured myself standing outside her apartment yesterday morning, dressed carefully, holding that box of wedding folders, believing I was about to see my daughter get married. I heard her words again. It was my day. I got to decide who was special. I clicked Confirm. The screen refreshed. Payment canceled. Next was the car payment. $450 a month. I'd co-signed on the Honda 2 years earlier when her credit score wasn't enough. I hadn't hesitated then. Cancel, confirm. Insurance followed. Health, dental, vision, $500 a month. She'd stayed on my company plan because it was better than what her employer offered. Cancel, confirm. Phone bill, streaming services, gym membership. Each one was a thread I'd woven into the net beneath her. Each cancellation a deliberate cut. By 6:37, accounts were gone. The summary appeared: 7 recurring payments canceled. Estimated monthly savings, $3,260. Savings. The word made my chest tighten. I wasn't saving anything. I was letting go. I leaned back in my chair and stared until the numbers blurred. Raymond. I looked up. Gloria Stevens stood in my doorway, coat still on, purse over her shoulder. She'd kept the books here for 12 years. She knew every dollar this company touched, and every dollar I'd spent on Taylor. "You're here early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." I closed the browser. She stepped inside, eyes lingering on the reflection in my glasses. "What did you do?" I removed my glasses and rubbed my eyes. What I should have done years ago. "Raymond." "She got married Saturday," I said. "I found out yesterday morning when I showed up thinking the wedding was that day. I wasn't invited." Gloria sat down slowly. "Oh, Raymond." Her mother was there. Pamela. The woman who walked out 24 years ago. I laughed without humor. I was there for everything. School plays, conferences, birthdays, college, loans, rent. And I wasn't special enough for her wedding. "So you cut her off." "I canceled automatic payments," I said. "I'm not funding a life that doesn't include me." Gloria was quiet. Then she said, "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 6 years." I looked up. "I didn't know you had a daughter. Most people don't." "Her name's Rebecca. I raised her alone. 2 jobs. College paid. When she moved away, she stopped calling. When I asked why, she said I was too needy, that I made her feel guilty for living her life." I swallowed. That must have hurt. It did. Gloria met my eyes. Because she was right. I kept score. I reminded her of every sacrifice. You didn't. You gave because you loved her. If she can't see that the failure isn't yours, then why does it feel like it is? "Because you're a good father," she said gently. "Good fathers always blame themselves." She stood. "You did the right thing. Love isn't one way. If she wants you back, she needs to see you as her father, not her provider." "Thank you." She paused at the door. "Rebecca called me last year. She'd had a baby. We're rebuilding slowly. Sometimes people need to lose something before they understand its value." After she left, I sat alone. Around 8, my phone rang. Dennis Crawford, my business partner. "You okay?" he asked. Gloria told me. "I'm fine. You want breakfast talk?" "No. I need time." "She's going to call," he said. "When payments fail." "I know. What will you say?" I thought of teaching her to ride a bike. Graduation days. Paying off her loans. "I'll tell her it's time she stands on her own." Dennis exhaled. "I think you're doing the right thing. We'll see." Afterward, I emailed the property management company. "Please remove Raymond Clark as guarantor for Unit 408. Effective immediately." I reread it, then sent it. At 8:15, I checked the portal one last time. 7 accounts closed. 24 years of support undone. I shut down my computer. I didn't call her. I didn't explain. The first of the month was 5 days away. She'd notice soon enough. 5 days later, my phone rang during a client meeting. Taylor's name lit up the screen, her college graduation photo smiling at me. I let it ring. Then I stepped into the hallway and answered. "Hello, Taylor." Her voice was sharp, frantic. "What did you do?" 5 days after I cut her off, she came to my office. I heard her voice in the lobby, first sharp, desperate, cutting through the usual Saturday morning quiet. We were only open half days on weekends, and most of the crew was out on jobs. Gloria was at the front desk, and I heard her say, "Miss Clark, he's in a meeting. You can't just—" Then footsteps, fast, determined. My office door flew open. Taylor stood in the doorway, and I barely recognized her. Her face was flushed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants and an oversized jacket like she'd thrown on whatever was closest, and rushed out the door. Her eyes were red from crying or from not sleeping, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. Behind her, Gloria appeared out of breath. I'm sorry, Raymond. It's okay, Gloria. I set down my pen. Come in, Taylor. Gloria hesitated, then stepped back and closed the door, leaving us alone. Taylor didn't sit. She stood there, hands clenched into fists at her sides. What did you do? She said. I'd known this moment was coming. Had rehearsed it in my head a dozen times over the past 5 days. But now that she was here, standing in my office, looking like her world was falling apart, all my carefully prepared words evaporated. I stopped paying for your life, I said. You... She stopped like she couldn't process what I'd said. My rent bounced. The landlord called me Thursday morning saying the payment didn't go through. I thought it was a mistake, so I called the bank, and they said... Her voice cracked. They said you canceled the automatic transfer. That's right. And my car payment, my insurance, my phone bill, all canceled, I said. As of Monday morning, she stared at me. You can't just do that. After all these years, you can't just... Yes, I can. I stood up and walked around my desk. You're 29 years old, Taylor. You're married. You have a job and a degree I paid for. You're an adult. Adults pay their own bills. But you always... She stopped herself. You've always helped me. You said you'd always be there. I said I'd always love you, I corrected. And I will. But love doesn't mean I have to keep funding your life while you pretend I don't exist. I don't pretend. You didn't invite me to your wedding. The words came out harder than I intended. You got married a week ago, and I found out by showing up at your apartment the next morning, thinking the ceremony was that day. Do you have any idea what that felt like? She looked down. It was complicated. So you keep saying, I crossed my arms. But it's not complicated, Taylor. You made a choice. You decided who was important enough to be there. And I wasn't one of those people. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, I spent 24 years showing up for you. Every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every birthday, every graduation. I paid off your student loans. I co-signed your apartment lease. I bought you a car. And when it came time for the most important day of your life, you didn't even tell me it was happening. Tears were streaming down her face now. Pamela said, I went very still. What did Pamela say? She said you'd react like this. Taylor's voice turned defensive like she was repeating words someone else had put in her mouth. She said if you found out she was coming to the wedding, you'd make it all about you. You'd try to control everything. She said I had to choose, and it was my day, so I got to decide who was special. I finished quietly. She nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. I took a breath. Not anger at Taylor, anger at the woman who'd walked out on her 24 years ago and was now turning her against me. Let me ask you something, I said. In 24 years, have I ever tried to control you? Taylor opened her mouth, then closed it. Have I ever told you who you could date, what job you could take, where you could live? No, but did I demand to plan your wedding? Did I insist on walking you down the aisle? Did I ever say you owed me anything for what I did for you? No. Her voice was barely a whisper. Then why would you believe her? I asked. Why would you believe I'd make your wedding about me when I've spent your entire life making everything about you? She looked up at me, and for a moment I saw the little girl who'd asked if I was her real dad. The one who'd hugged me after learning to ride her bike. The one who'd said she couldn't have graduated without me. I don't know, she said. She's my mom. I wanted to believe she'd changed. I understand that, and I did. But you gave her a chance at my expense. You cut me out to let her in. I didn't mean, it doesn't matter what you meant, I said quietly. What matters is what you did. And now you need to figure out how to handle the consequences. So this is punishment. Her voice rose. You're punishing me because I hurt your feelings. No, Taylor. I looked at her directly. I'm teaching you what it feels like to not be special. She flinched. For 24 years, I continued, you were the most important person in my life. Every decision I made, I thought about you first. You were special to me. More special than anything. I paused. But I wasn't special to you. I was convenient. I was the person who paid for things. And when it came time to celebrate the most important moment of your life, I didn't matter enough to be there. Raymond, when you figure out who really cares about you, I said, you know where to find me. She stood there for a long moment, tears running down her face, hands shaking. I thought maybe she'd say she was sorry, that she understood. Instead, she turned toward the door. This isn't over, she said. I know. She left. The door closed with a soft click. I sat at my desk and stared at the spot where she'd been standing. Gloria appeared a few minutes later, peeking in. You okay? She asked. No, I said, but I will be. She nodded and quietly closed the door. I'd thought standing my ground would bring relief. It didn't. All I felt was tired. 2 weeks after our confrontation, Dennis Crawford, my business partner for the past 15 years, called me at the office. You need to hear this, he said. His voice had that tone, the one that meant trouble. I set down my coffee. I'm listening. Taylor's behind on rent. I ran into Mr. Carlson yesterday. He owns that building in the Pearl District. He posted a 3-day notice on her door last week. I'd known this would happen. But hearing it confirmed still hit hard. She's been trying to get loans, Dennis continued. Applied at 3 banks. Got denied every time, no cosigner, not enough income. And that woman I saw her with at the bank. Dennis paused. She's at the apartment every day. Stays over most nights from what the neighbors say. My jaw tightened. Pamela Thornton, her biological mother. The one who left when she was 5. She helping with money. I doubt it, I said. She's helping with something else. Making sure Taylor knows this is all my fault. What's the plan? Dennis asked. I wait, I said. For her to figure out who's really on her side. After we hung up, I tried to focus on work. But my mind kept drifting back to Pamela staying at Taylor's apartment, whispering in her ear every night. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Clark. A young woman's voice. My name is Kimberly Stone. I'm a friend of Taylor's. I sat up straighter. Okay, I shouldn't be calling, she said quickly. Taylor doesn't know. But something's not right. What do you mean? Taylor's been different since her mom came back. She cries every night. She barely sleeps. And Pamela, she's always there. Always talking. Kimberly's voice dropped. She says you never really loved Taylor, that you only wanted to control her. She says it all the time, Mr. Clark. Over and over. My chest tightened. Does Taylor believe it? I don't know, Kimberly admitted. Sometimes I think she does. But other times I catch her looking at old photos of you two and she just cries. There's something else, Kimberly continued. Connor, her husband, he's been asking questions. About you, about the money, about why Pamela suddenly showed up. She paused. I think he's starting to figure out that something's wrong with her. Pamela, I mean. She's off. The way she talks to Taylor, the way she looks at things in the apartment, the way she keeps pushing Taylor to ask you for money. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Taylor used to talk about you like you hung the moon. Kimberly said, her voice thick. She said you were the best person she knew. And now she acts like you're a stranger. She took a breath. That doesn't happen in 2 months, Mr. Clark. Not unless someone's making it happen. Thank you for calling Kimberly. Are you going to help her? I'm trying to, I said. But she has to want the help first. After she hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time. Kimberly's words echoed, "That doesn't happen in 2 months." She was right. Taylor hadn't changed on her own. Someone had changed her. 3 days later, Taylor called. Her voice sounded different, angry and scared. "Connor's asking questions," she said. "About the money. About you." "Tell him the truth," I said calmly. "You don't understand. Pamela says you're trying to—" "Taylor," I interrupted. "I don't care what Pamela says." She went silent. "But I care what you say," I continued. "Not what Pamela told you to think. What do you actually believe?" The silence stretched out. "I don't know," she finally whispered. "Then figure it out," I said gently. "And when you do, call me back." I hung up. My hand was shaking. I set the phone down, half expecting her to call back immediately. To yell. To cry. To demand I fix everything. But she didn't. The next morning, a certified letter arrived at my office. Gloria brought it in, her face worried. "It's from a law firm," she said. I opened it. The letterhead read Meredith Kane, Esquire, family law attorney. I read it once, my jaw tightening. Then again, slower. "Dear Mr. Clark, I am writing on behalf of my client, Ms. Taylor Clark Matthews, regarding the immediate cessation of financial support previously provided. My client contends that after 24 years of established financial dependency, your abrupt termination of all payments constitutes emotional distress and financial abandonment. We request immediate reinstatement of the following monthly rent assistance, vehicle payment coverage, health insurance, and general living expenses. Failure to comply will result in legal action." I set the letter down. She'd hired a lawyer. Pamela had convinced her to hire a lawyer. I picked up my phone and dialed Samuel Page, my attorney for 15 years. "God," I said when he answered. "I need you to read something." A week later, the certified letter sat on my desk like a loaded gun. Samuel Page, my attorney for the past 15 years, a man who'd helped me through business disputes and contract negotiations, read it twice before he looked up at me. "They don't have a case," he said. We were sitting in his office downtown, a space I'd been to dozens of times over the years. Samuel was in his 60s, gray-haired and calm in a way that always made me feel like whatever problem I brought him could be solved. Today I needed that calm more than ever. "Walk me through it," I said. He set the letter down and leaned back in his chair. "Meredith Kane is fishing. She's throwing legal terms around, hoping you'll panic and write a check to make it go away." He tapped the letter. "The unjust termination of financial support, emotional distress, implied contract. None of it holds water." "Why not?" "Because Taylor is 29 years old," Samuel said simply. "She's a legal adult. She's married, she has a job. You have no legal obligation to support her." "But I raised her for 24 years. Out of love," Samuel said. "Not because the law required it. That's the difference." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "Let me ask you something. Did you ever legally adopt Taylor?" I shook my head. "Her mother, Pamela, she just left one day. Never signed custody papers, never called. I became her guardian by default, but I never went through formal adoption. So there's no legal parent-child relationship." The words hit me harder than I expected. "No." Samuel's expression softened. "Raymond, I'm not saying you weren't her father. You were, in every way that matters. But legally speaking, you had no obligation. You could have walked away at any point and owed her nothing. I never wanted to walk away. I know." He finished writing and looked up. "Which is why this letter is particularly offensive. Meredith Kane is essentially arguing that because you chose to be generous for 2 decades, you're now legally required to continue being generous forever. That's not how the law works." "What about the implied contract angle?" I asked. "She's claiming I created a dependency." "Irrelevant." Samuel's voice was firm. "Adults are responsible for their own lives. You could have paid every bill for 40 years, it still wouldn't create a legal obligation. The only way she could win this case is if you'd signed a written agreement promising lifelong support. Did you? No. Then we're done here. He picked up his pen again. I'm going to write a response. Polite but firm. I'll explain that you have no legal obligation to provide support, that Taylor is a capable adult with her own income, and that any further legal threats will be considered harassment. I watched him write, feeling something hollow settle in my chest. No legal relationship, like she never existed. Samuel stopped writing and looked at me. Raymond, the law doesn't define what you two had. Love defines that. What you did for her, that was real. That mattered. Don't let some attorney's letterhead make you doubt that. But it didn't matter enough for her to invite me to her wedding. No. Samuel agreed quietly. It didn't. And that's why you're here. He finished the letter and slid it across the desk. I read it clear, professional, unambiguous. A wall built of legal language between me and Taylor. How long until she gets this? I asked. I'll send it certified mail this afternoon. She'll have it by Friday. And then nothing, Samuel said. Unless she wants to file an actual lawsuit, which I doubt. Meredith Kane isn't stupid. She knows she doesn't have a case. This was a Hail Mary, an attempt to scare you into compliance. It almost worked, I admitted, but it didn't. Samuel stood up and walked me to the door. You're doing the right thing, Raymond. Sometimes love means setting boundaries, even when it hurts. I left his office and walked to my truck. The afternoon sun was bright traffic moving normally, people going about their lives. Everything looked the same, but I felt like something fundamental had shifted. No legal relationship. 24 years, and in the eyes of the law, we were strangers. I was halfway to my truck when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me stop. Mr. Clark. A man's voice. Professional. Careful. My name is Harold Bishop. I'm an attorney. I need to speak with you about Taylor Clark and a man named Thomas Westfield. I froze. Who? Hockey. Thomas Westfield. Bishop repeated. I'm the executor of his estate. He passed away 3 months ago. I don't know anyone named Westfield. I know, Bishop said, but he knew Taylor. And there's something you need to see. What kind of something? The kind that changes everything. Bishop paused. Can I come to your office tomorrow? This conversation needs to happen in person. I stood in the parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. How do you know about me? Mr. Westfield's estate is complicated, Bishop said carefully. And you're a significant part of Taylor's life. Or you were. I need to talk to you before I talk to her. About what? To tomorrow, Bishop said. 2 o'clock? Your office? I'll explain everything then. He hung up before I could respond. I stood there for a long moment staring at my phone. Thomas Westfield. I'd never heard that name in my life. But Harold Bishop's voice had been careful, too careful, like he was holding information that could explode if handled wrong. I called Samuel back. I said when he answered. There's someone I need you to meet tomorrow. Why? Because, I said slowly. I think someone just opened a door I didn't know existed. Harold Bishop arrived at my office the next afternoon, carrying a leather portfolio that looked older than both of us combined. Samuel Page sat beside me. I'd asked him to stay after our meeting about Meredith Kane's letter. Whatever Bishop had come to tell me, I wanted a witness, someone who could confirm I wasn't losing my mind. Bishop settled into the chair across from my desk, opened the portfolio, and slid a photograph toward me. This is Thomas Westfield, he said. The man in the photo was maybe 68, silver hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a polo shirt With a small logo, I recognized Westfield Electronics. They had 3 stores across Oregon, Portland, Salem, and Eugene. I'd bought a laptop from the downtown location a few years back. He passed away on February 15th of this year. Bishop continued. Myocardial infarction. Sudden at home. I studied the photo, confused. I don't understand what this has to do with Taylor. Bishop's expression didn't change. Mr. Westfield was Taylor's biological father. The room tilted. Samuel leaned forward. Biological father, are you certain? Bishop slid another document across the desk, a DNA paternity test from a lab in Beaverton, dated October 2020. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Thomas and Pamela Thornton had a relationship in 1995. Bishop explained. It was brief. When it ended, Pamela married Hugh Raymond in early 1996. Taylor was born in November of that year. My hands were shaking. I set the test results down carefully. Thomas didn't know about Taylor. Bishop continued. Not for years. Pamela left you in 2001 and she and Thomas lost contact. They reconnected in 2019 at a trade conference in Seattle. That's when Pamela told him about Taylor. And he believed her, Samuel asked. He wanted to be sure, Bishop said. Pamela provided a hair sample from Taylor's hairbrush. The test confirmed it in 2020. I found my voice. Why didn't he contact Taylor directly? He wanted to, Bishop said quietly. But Pamela convinced him it would hurt Taylor. That you, Raymond, were the only father Taylor had ever known, and that revealing the truth would cause more harm than good. Thomas respected that. He believed Pamela had Taylor's best interests at heart. He didn't know her like I did. Bishop pulled out another document, Thomas Westfield's last will and testament, updated September 12, 2024. Last summer, Thomas was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Bishop said. He knew he didn't have much time. In September, he updated his will to include Taylor as a beneficiary. He left her $300,000. The number hit me like a fist. 300,000, Samuel repeated. Bishop nodded. Thomas never met Taylor, but he wanted to provide for her. He asked me to locate her after his death and inform her of the inheritance. I stared at the will at Taylor's name typed in black ink under beneficiaries. Probate takes time, Bishop continued. I didn't finalize the estate until late March. I attempted to contact Taylor in early April, but she didn't return my calls. When I ran a background check to verify her address, I found something concerning. He slid another page across the desk, a credit report. Pamela Thornton. Outstanding debt $47,000. I also discovered, Bishop said, that Pamela contacted Taylor in January, 1 month after Thomas passed away. And 1 month after that, Taylor stopped speaking to you. My chest tightened. Samuel's voice was sharp. You think Pamela Thornton is manipulating Taylor to access the inheritance? I think it's a possibility, Bishop said carefully. If Taylor doesn't know about Thomas and Pamela convinces her that you've abandoned her, Taylor may be vulnerable to influence. Pamela could persuade her to share the money or pay off Pamela's debts. I thought about the legal letter, the desperation in Taylor's voice during our last call. The woman Dennis saw at the bank. What do you need from me? I asked. Bishop met my eyes. I need your permission to tell Taylor the truth. She deserves to know who her biological father was and why he left her this inheritance. But I wanted to speak with you first. You raised her. You're her father in every way that matters. Biology doesn't make you a father, I thought. Love does. Tell her, I said. Bishop nodded and reached into his portfolio one last time. He pulled out a sealed envelope, cream-colored, with Taylor's name written in careful script. Thomas left this for her, Bishop said. I'm required to deliver it when I disclose the inheritance. I thought you might want to be there when she reads it. I stared at the envelope. What's in it? Samuel asked. I don't know. Bishop said. But Thomas told me it explains everything, why he stayed away, what he wanted for Taylor, and what he hoped she'd understand about the choices he made. He stood, leaving the envelope on my desk. I'll contact Taylor tomorrow, he said. If you'd like to be present when I meet with her, let me know. After he left, Samuel and I sat in silence. The envelope lay between us like a grenade. 2 weeks after Harold Bishop sat in my office, Connor Matthews sat across from me in the same chair. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled. He'd called that morning and asked if we could meet, just the two of us, away from Taylor. I need to tell you what happened that week, he said. Because now I understand why you did what you did. I folded my hands on my desk. Go ahead. Connor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It was the same afternoon Bishop came to see you, he began. I was home early, showing got canceled. I was looking for the dishwasher warranty because the thing was leaking again. Taylor keeps all that stuff in the desk drawer in the living room. He paused, swallowed hard. I found a credit card statement instead. His voice was quiet. $18,000. Balance due. And it was in my name. I didn't move. I didn't recognize half the charges. Connor continued. Nordstrom, $3,400. Some spa place I'd never heard of, $1,200. A furniture store, $5,500. And then there was a line item that just said family loan, $8,000. He looked at me. I sat there staring at that statement for 20 minutes. My stomach was in knots, because I didn't remember charging any of it. I could see the moment playing out, the confusion, the slow dawning realization. I asked her about it that night, Connor said. I waited until after dinner. I tried to keep my voice calm. I said, Taylor, I found a credit card statement today. Can you explain these charges? He rubbed his face with both hands. She got defensive immediately. She said, that's for the wedding. You said we could use it. I said, we agreed on a budget. This is 3 times what we talked about. She said, things came up. You don't understand how expensive weddings are. Connor's jaw tightened. Gee, then I asked about the family loan. $8,000. I said, who did we loan $8,000 to? And she went quiet. Just stared at me. Finally, she said, my mom needed help. She's going through a hard time. I felt the air leave the room. So I said, your mom, the one who abandoned you. Connor's voice cracked. And Taylor started crying. She said, she's changed. Why won't anyone believe that? I said, because I've never met her. You won't even introduce us. He stopped, looked down at his hands. She cried for a while. Then she went into the bedroom and locked the door. I slept on the couch. The silence stretched between us. That's when I started thinking about you, Connor said quietly. Taylor had always told me you were controlling, that you held money over her head, that you made her feel like she owed you, but I'd never seen any evidence of that. He met my eyes. So I Googled you. Clark Landscape and Tree Care, 24 employees, 30 years in business. You're not a freeloader. You're successful. You built something. Connor shook his head slowly. And then I thought, if you're so controlling, why did you pay for everything without asking for anything back? Taylor's apartment, her car, her insurance. You never asked her to work for you, never demanded she take over the business. You just supported her. He leaned back in the chair. That's when I knew something was wrong, really wrong. I waited. I didn't trust Taylor anymore, Connor said, but I didn't know who to trust, so I started digging. He pulled his phone from his pocket, and what I found? He looked up at me. Mr. Clark, you need to see this. He turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a photograph, a screenshot from Facebook. Taylor and a woman with dark hair, both smiling at the camera in a restaurant booth. The woman's arm was around Taylor's shoulders. The photo was dated February 20th, 2025, 5 days after Thomas Westfield died. The caption read, "Reunited with my beautiful daughter." A week after Harold Bishop revealed the truth, Connor called me. I found some things, he said. His voice was tight. Can we meet not at your office, somewhere private? We met at a cafe near the waterfront. It was early, just past 8 in the morning, and the place was nearly empty. Connor was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his laptop open and a stack of papers spread across the table. He didn't waste time. I've been tracking Pamela's social media for the past 5 years, he said, turning the laptop toward me. The screen showed a spreadsheet with dates, post descriptions, and corresponding expenses. She never mentioned Taylor, not once, not a single post photo or comment. He scrolled down. Then in February, everything changed. 18 posts in 2 months. All about my daughter and family reunions. All about how blessed she was to have Taylor back in her life. I leaned closer. I cross-referenced the timeline, Connor continued. Every post about Taylor lines up with a major expense. He pointed to the first entry, February 12th. Pamela posts, lunch with my girl. That night, Taylor paid for dinner at some steakhouse downtown. $340. I saw the receipt. Taylor charged it to the card in my name. He scrolled again. March 5th. Pamela posts, helping my daughter plan her wedding. 2 days later, Taylor transfers $8,000 to Pamela, the same family loan I found on the credit card statement. His jaw tightened. April 1st. Pamela posts, my daughter's special day. That was the wedding? The one you weren't invited to. Connor closed the laptop and looked at me. She's using her. I didn't argue. Connor folded his hands on the table. There's something else going on here, isn't there? Something Taylor doesn't know about. I exhaled slowly. There's something you need to know, I said. I told him about Thomas Westfield. I kept it simple, didn't mention the DNA test, didn't go into detail about the affair or the years of distance. I just told him the essentials. Taylor's biological father passed away 3 months ago, I said. He left her money in his will. Connor's eyes widened. How much? Enough. I said that someone might come back into her life just because of it. Connor went still. Does Pamela know? The estate attorney thinks so. Connor leaned back in the booth, staring at the ceiling. That's why she came back, he said quietly. Not because she missed Taylor. Not because she wanted to rebuild their relationship. He looked at me. She came back for the money. That's what Bishop believes. And the wedding. Connor continued, his voice rising slightly. She made sure you weren't there so you couldn't warn Taylor. So you couldn't tell her the truth about what was happening. I nodded. Connor was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I need to talk to Taylor. Really talk to her. Will she listen? I don't know, Connor admitted. But I have to try. He met my eyes. Not Mr. Clark. I owe you an apology. Taylor told me you were difficult, that you tried to control her with money, that you made her feel like she owed you. And you believed her. I did, Connor said. Because I love her. But now... He stopped, swallowed. Now I'm not sure she's the person I married anymore. She is, I said quietly. Whoever she is right now, she's still the girl I raised. Pamela's just clouding her. Connor nodded slowly. Then we need to pull her out of it. He stood gathering his laptop and papers. I'll talk to her this week, he said. If she won't listen, I'll ask my father, Russell Matthews. He's a lawyer, to help. He'll know what to do. I shook his hand. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. 3 days later, Connor called at 11 at night. His voice was shaking. I confronted her, he said. About Pamela, about the money, about you. I gripped the phone. What did she say? She told me to get out. On a Sunday afternoon in early May, I stood at my front door and watched Connor Matthews step out of his car. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled and untucked, and there was a shadow of stubble across his jaw. He had a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and when he looked up at me, I saw something I hadn't seen before defeat. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I stepped aside and let him through. In the kitchen, I made coffee while Connor sat at the table staring at his hands. The duffel bag sat at his feet like a verdict. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the coffee maker gurgling and the distant hum of traffic outside. I set a mug in front of him, black no sugar the way he'd always taken it when he and Taylor used to visit, and sat down across from him. "Nah, she chose Pamela," he said quietly. I wrapped my hands around my own mug and waited. "Tell me what happened." Connor took a long breath, staring into the steam rising from his coffee. "It was Thursday night," he said. "I waited until Pamela went out. She'd been staying at the apartment almost every night, sleeping on the couch, always there. I thought if I could just talk to Taylor alone, maybe I could get through to her." He wrapped his hands around the mug, as if trying to absorb its warmth. I asked her about the timeline. I said, "Your mom showed up 1 week after Thomas Westfield died. Did you know that—" Connor paused, his throat working. She just stared at me. She said, "Who's Thomas Westfield?" I closed my eyes. I told her. Connor continued, his voice carefully controlled. I said, "Your biological father." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. She said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He stopped, rubbed his face with one hand. My heart was pounding. I was trying so hard to stay calm, to just present the facts. I told her everything. That he died in February. That he left her money in his will. That Pamela knew about it. That the timeline of Pamela coming back lined up exactly with his death. What did she say? She said I was lying, Connor said flatly, and I heard the hurt beneath the words. She said Raymond put you up to this. I told her you didn't put me up to anything. I told her I found the credit card statement, the Facebook posts, the timeline. I showed her the spreadsheet I'd made, all the dates, all the expenses. He stopped, stared into his coffee. She told me to get out. I didn't move. I said, "Taylor, please, just listen to me." But before she could answer, Pamela came out of the bedroom. Connor's jaw tightened. She must have come home early. She was just standing there in the hallway, arms crossed, this look on her face, like she'd been waiting for this. What did she say? She said, "You heard her. Get out." Connor's hands tightened around the mug. And I said, "This is between me and my wife." Pamela just smiled this cold smile and said, "Your wife wants you gone." Connor looked up at me, and I saw the moment replay in his eyes. Then I looked at Taylor. I said, "Is that true?" She was crying. Her face was red, tears streaming down. But she wouldn't look at me. She just looked down at the floor, like she couldn't even meet my eyes. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. "So I left," Connor said. I grabbed my keys and my phone and walked to the door. But before I closed it, I turned around one more time. I said, "Fine, but when you figure out what she's really after, don't call me." He exhaled slowly, as if he'd been holding his breath since Thursday. As I was closing the door, I heard Pamela say, "He's just like Raymond, controlling." I set my mug down carefully, feeling the weight of those words. "You can stay here as long as you need to," I said. Connor shook his head. "I'm going to my dad's tomorrow. But thank you, really. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to talk to my father and Harold Bishop," Connor said, and for the first time I heard resolve in his voice. "If Pamela's manipulating her, there has to be some legal angle, some way to protect Taylor from herself." He paused. "And I'm filing for an annulment." "Are you sure?" Connor met my eyes. "Mr. Clark. I married Taylor Clark. The woman in that apartment isn't her. I don't know who that person is, but she's not the woman I fell in love with." I nodded slowly. "You did everything you could." "I just wish I'd done it sooner," Connor said quietly. "I wish I'd listened to you from the start." "You loved her," I said. "That's not a mistake." That's what you were supposed to do. For a moment, Connor's face crumpled, and I thought he might break down. But he held it together, swallowed hard, and nodded. I walked Connor out to his car. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the driveway. He tossed the duffel bag into the back seat and turned to me. "I'm sorry," he said, "for not believing you sooner." I shook my head. "You loved her. There's nothing to apologize for." He got in the car, paused with his hand on the door. "If this works, if we can stop Pamela, do you think Taylor will ever forgive us?" I didn't have an answer. Connor nodded as if he'd expected that and drove away. I stood at the door and watched his taillights disappear down the street. Taylor had lost 2 people now, and she still didn't realize it. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Connor. "Talk to Dad. He wants to meet with you and Bishop. Friday, 2 p.m. Russell says if there's undue influence, we can block the inheritance transfer." I stared at the message. This wasn't over. 3 days after Connor's visit, my phone rang at 11 at night. It was him. "Gee, I found something," he said. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. I went back to the apartment while Taylor was at work. "You need to see this." 20 minutes later, Connor was at my door with his laptop under his arm. We sat at the kitchen table. He opened the laptop and turned it toward me. "I went to the apartment Tuesday," Connor said. "Taylor has MBA classes on Tuesday nights. She's usually gone until 9. I still have my key. Technically, my name's still on the lease." He pulled up a document. "I found this in Pamela's email. She was using the desktop in the living room, the one we bought together. She didn't log out." The document on the screen was titled Prenuptial Agreement Draft. Taylor Clark and Connor Matthews. It was dated March 2025. I leaned closer. The terms were laid out in clean legal language. Connor Matthews agrees to pay Taylor Clark $50,000 per year in spousal support in the event of divorce. Taylor Clark retains full ownership of inheritance from biological family. Connor Matthews waives all rights to assets acquired by Taylor during marriage. I looked at Connor. "Did you sign this?" "She never showed it to me," Connor said flatly. "We never talked about a prenup. Not once. This is the first time I've ever seen it." He scrolled up to the top of the email thread. "Yuti Pamela didn't draft it," he said. "It was forwarded to her by Meredith Kane Taylor's lawyer, the same one who sent you the legal letter back in April." He pointed to Pamela's reply, dated March 28, 2025. "Received. Make sure he signs this before the wedding." I sat back in my chair. "Pamela was planning this from the beginning," I said quietly. "Yeah," Connor said. "And if I'd signed it, she'd have had Taylor covered from both ends. The inheritance from Thomas Westfield and $50,000 a year from me if we divorced." He closed the laptop. "But there's more." Before Connor could continue, my phone rang. The caller ID said Kimberly Stone. I glanced at Connor. He nodded. "I gave her your number. She has something you need to hear." I answered and put it on speaker. "Mr. Clark." Kimberly's voice was tight, nervous. "Connor said I should call you. I need to tell you something." "Go ahead." "I've been recording Pamela's visits," Kimberly said. "I know that sounds weird, but Taylor's my best friend, and I could see something was wrong. Pamela's been at the apartment almost every day since February. I live next door, we share a wall. I started recording through the wall about 3 weeks ago." "What did you hear?" I asked. "Coaching," Kimberly said. "Pamela's been coaching Taylor on what to think, what to say, how to feel." There was a pause. "I'm going to play something for you." A moment later, audio crackled through the phone. It was muffled, distant, clearly recorded through a wall, but the voices were unmistakable. "Pamela, Raymond never loved you. He just wanted to control you. Taylor, but Dad paid for everything. Pamela." Exactly. That's control. Real love doesn't have a price tag. "Taylor, I don't know anymore. Pamela, do you want to be his puppet forever?" The audio cut off. Connor's jaw was tight. I felt my hands clench into fists. There's more, Kimberly said. Last week I heard Pamela on the phone with someone sounded like a debt collector. She said she owed $47,000. She told them, "My daughter's about to come into money. I'll pay you back after." Kimberly's voice softened. She's not here because she loves Taylor. She's here because she needs that inheritance. I closed my eyes. "Will you testify to this?" I asked. "Yes," Kimberly said without hesitation. "I'll bring the recordings. I'll do whatever it takes to help Taylor." "Thank you." After we hung up, Connor and I sat in silence. "She came back because of the inheritance," I said quietly. "She isolated Taylor from you so you couldn't warn her," Connor added. She's planning to take the $300,000, Connor nodded. "And the prenup was insurance. If I divorced her, Taylor would still get $50,000 a year from me. Pamela made sure Taylor would have income no matter what. We need to tell Bishop." "I already did," Connor said. "He's meeting with the probate judge on Monday. If we can prove undue influence, he can delay the transfer." I looked at him. "This could work." "It has to," Connor said. After Connor left, I sat alone in the dark kitchen. Every piece fit now: Pamela's debt, the inheritance, the timeline, the manipulation. Taylor wasn't a villain. She was trapped. And she didn't even know it. Friday morning, I put on my best suit. At 2 o'clock, I walked into Harold Bishop's conference room. Russell Matthews, Connor's father, a family law attorney with 30 years of experience, was already there. So was Samuel Page. Connor sat at the far end of the table, a binder of documents in front of him. Bishop looked at me, then at Russell. "Bring them in," he said. "All of them. Stop right here. The door is about to open. Taylor is about to walk in and see everything Raymond Connor and the truth she's been avoiding for 6 months. Comment now. What do you think Taylor's reaction will be? And subscribe to the channel if you want to see the moment the truth gets exposed." A quick note before we continue: some details in this story may have been dramatized or fictionalized to convey the lesson more clearly. If this doesn't sit right with you, you're absolutely free to stop here. At 2 o'clock that Friday afternoon, I stepped into Harold Bishop's conference room. It was a vast space-glass walls overlooking downtown Portland, a long oak table that could seat 20. Russell Matthews sat at one end, his reading glasses perched on his nose, a stack of legal folders in front of him. Samuel Page sat at the other, quiet and steady as always. Connor stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city. And in the middle, 3 empty chairs, for Taylor, Pamela, and the truth. Bishop gestured for me to sit. I took the chair beside Russell. "They'll be here at 2:30, Bishop said. "I asked Ms. Thornton and Ms. Clark to arrive then." "They don't know you're here." Russell looked up. "Is that proper?" It's necessary," Bishop replied. If Pamela knew we were gathering evidence, she'd coach Taylor on what to say. Connor turned from the window. "How much does Taylor know?" "She knows there's an inheritance," Bishop said. "She doesn't know the amount or the source. And she doesn't know about Thomas," I said quietly. "No," Bishop confirmed. "Today she will." At 2:30, the door opened. Taylor walked in first. The moment she saw me, she froze. "What is this?" she said. Pamela followed a step behind her, eyes scanning the room. When she saw Connor by the window, her face went pale. "Taylor, we're leaving," Pamela said, reaching for Taylor's arm. "Miss Thornton, please sit," Bishop said calmly. "This is a legal proceeding." "We don't have to stay," Pamela said, her voice tight. Russell stood. "Actually, you do. I'm Russell Matthews, attorney at law. If you leave, we'll file for a restraining order within the hour." Pamela's jaw tightened. She pulled out a chair and sat down hard, pulling Taylor down beside her. Taylor looked across the table at me. "Did you do this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "No," I said. "Mr. Bishop did." Bishop folded his hands on the table. "Mrs. Clark, my name is Harold Bishop. I am the executor of the estate of Thomas Westfield." Taylor blinked. "I don't know who that is." "I know," Bishop said, "but he knew you. He slid a photograph across the table. It was a professional portrait, a man in his late 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Thomas Westfield. Taylor stared at it. I've never met him. Thomas Westfield passed away on February 15th of this year, Bishop said. He left you $300,000 in his will. Taylor's eyes went wide. Pamela leaned forward. Why would a stranger leave money to her? Bishop turned his gaze to Pamela. He wasn't a stranger to you, was he, Ms. Thornton? Pamela's face didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Connor spoke from the window, his voice cold. You met him in 1995. You had an affair with him. Taylor turned to her mother. What? Pamela shook her head. That's ridiculous. I don't know. Stop, Bishop said quietly. He pulled out a second photograph and slid it across the table. It was older, slightly faded. A younger Pamela, maybe 30, standing beside a younger Thomas Westfield at what looked like a company picnic. They were smiling. His arm was around her waist. The date stamp in the corner read, August 1995. Bishop laid out 3 more photos. Pamela and Thomas at a restaurant, at a park, in front of a Christmas tree, all dated between 1995 and early 1996. Taylor stared at them, her face drained of color. Bishop's voice was steady, matter-of-fact. Thomas Westfield was your biological father, Ms. Clark. The room went silent. Taylor looked at me. That's not possible, she whispered. Raymond. I met her eyes. I'm not your biological father, Taylor, I said quietly. I never was. Her face crumpled. Pamela stood up abruptly. This is absurd. You can't prove... Russell's voice cut through the room like a knife. We can, and we will. Pamela sat back down. Taylor was staring at me, her eyes filling with tears. And you knew, she whispered. I nodded slowly. And you stayed, her voice broke. Because you're my daughter, I said. Biology doesn't matter. She covered her face with her hands. Bishop reached into his briefcase and pulled out 2 envelopes. The first was cream-colored with Taylor's name, written in shaky, careful handwriting across the front. This is from Thomas, Bishop said, setting it on the table in front of Taylor. But before you open it, there's something else you need to see. He placed the second envelope beside the first. DNA test results from 2020. The envelope lay on the conference table like a bomb. Taylor stared at it, her hands pressed flat against the table as if holding herself steady. Pamela's hand reached out toward it, fingers trembling, then froze mid-air. Bishop opened it himself and read aloud, his voice clinical and clear. High probability of paternity, 99.97%. The room went silent. Taylor's face went white. She shook her head slowly, as if trying to shake off the words. And no, she whispered. That can't be. Bishop continued reading from the lab report, his tone unchanged. Sample A, Thomas Westfield, deceased. Sample B, hair follicle belonging to Taylor Clark. Collected November 2020. Taylor's head snapped up, her eyes wide. Hair follicle. Her voice was rising. I never gave anyone my hair. I didn't take any test. Thomas collected it without your permission, Bishop said gently. He wanted to be certain before he contacted you. Taylor stared at him, her mouth open, struggling to form words. Why didn't he contact me? She finally said, her voice breaking. Bishop's gaze shifted to Pamela. Miss Thornton told him it would hurt you. Pamela's voice rose immediately, defensive and sharp. I was protecting her. She didn't need some stranger coming in and... Connor's voice cut through the room like a blade. No, you were protecting yourself. Pamela's face flushed red. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Russell Matthews stood and began laying out documents on the table one by one like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Let's talk about the timeline, he said. He pointed to the first document. February 15, 2025. Thomas Westfield dies of a myocardial infarction at his home in southeast Portland. He slid the second document forward. February 20th, 2025. 5 days later. Pamela Thornton contacts Taylor Clark for the first time in 24 years. Taylor's eyes darted to the dates. She was shaking her head again, small movements as if trying to deny what she was seeing. Russell placed a third document on the table, a text message thread, printed out, highlighted in yellow. Late February 2025. Taylor stopped speaking to Raymond Clark. He placed the final document down. April 1st, 2025. Taylor Clark marries Connor Matthews. Raymond Clark is not invited to the wedding. Taylor's hands were shaking. She touched the edge of one of the documents, tracing the timeline with her finger, her face pale. This is a coincidence, she said, her voice weak. It doesn't mean... Russell turned to Pamela, his voice firm. Miss Thornton, when did you first learn about the inheritance Thomas left for Taylor? Pamela's jaw tightened. She sat up straighter, her voice defiant. I don't have to answer that. Bishop spoke quietly, but his words landed like stones. January 2025. Thomas told you when he updated his will. He called you to let you know he was providing for Taylor after his death. Taylor turned slowly to her mother, her face a mask of disbelief. You knew he was dying. Her voice was barely a whisper. Pamela's face twisted, her voice rising defensive. He was just a sick old man who... And you waited until he died to tell me. Taylor's voice cracked louder, now anguished. I was giving you space to... You were clearing the way for yourself. Connor interrupted, his voice tight with controlled fury. Pamela's hands were shaking now. She pressed them together in her lap, trying to hide it. Samuel Page stood and placed a single sheet of paper on the table in front of Taylor. Credit report, he said quietly. Pamela Thornton, $47,000 in outstanding debt. 3 debt collection agencies actively pursuing payment. 2 pending lawsuits. Taylor stared at the paper. Her lips moved silently, reading the numbers. She looked up at her mother, her eyes filling with tears. Mom, Pamela's voice was tight, strained. That's private information, they can't just... It was obtained legally through investigation, Russell said. You're being sued by 3 creditors, Ms. Thornton. Connor leaned forward, his voice cold. And you told one of them, and I quote, my daughter's about to come into money. I'll pay you back after she gets it. Pamela's face went white. Russell pressed a button on a laptop. A recording crackled through the conference room speakers, distant, muffled, but unmistakable. Pamela's voice. My daughter's going to get $300,000. I'll have the money within 6 months. You'll get your payment. Taylor stood up abruptly, her chair scraping back across the floor with a harsh sound. You were using me, she said, her voice hollow. Pamela scrambled to her feet, reaching across the table toward Taylor, her voice breaking. No, baby, no, I love you, I swear, I just... Taylor's voice was ice. You only loved the money. Pamela's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. That's not true. I came back because I missed you, because I wanted to. You came back 5 days after he died. Connor said quietly. You didn't come back because you missed her. You came back because you needed the inheritance. Pamela was shaking her head frantically, her hands reaching toward Taylor. No, you don't understand. Taylor looked at me across the table, her face pale, her eyes red. But he did cut me off, she said, her voice shaking. Raymond stopped paying for everything. I met her eyes. Because you told me I wasn't special, I said quietly. And you needed to understand what that felt like. Taylor sank back into her chair, her hands covering her face. Pamela tried again, her voice desperate, pleading. Everyone's twisting everything. I was trying to help you, baby. I was trying to protect you from... Bishop's voice cut through the room like a gavel falling. So, Ms. Thornton, I am delaying the inheritance transfer for 6 months while I conduct a full investigation into potential undue influence. I watched Pamela's face. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Taylor, then at me, then back at Taylor. I saw the calculation in her eyes, the panic, the desperate search for a way out, some angle she could still work. But there wasn't one. The truth was out, and there was nowhere left to hide. Taylor stood slowly like someone in a dream. She walked past Pamela without looking at her, as if her mother had become invisible. She stopped at the door and turned back to me. "You knew," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "About Thomas. About me not being yours. And you stayed." I nodded. "Why?" She whispered, her eyes searching mine. I stood and took a step toward her. "Because love isn't about biology," I said. "It's about showing up, every day, for 24 years. That's what a father does." Her face crumpled. She started crying deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Then she turned and ran. Pamela scrambled after her, her voice breaking, desperate. Taylor, wait. Please, just let me explain." The door slammed shut behind them. The conference room was silent. Connor stood by the window, his jaw tight, his arms crossed. Russell gathered his papers with quiet efficiency. Bishop closed the file in front of him. Samuel looked at me and nodded once. It was over. The meeting ended 2 hours later, but I stayed in the conference room for another 20 minutes. Russell and Connor left first. Shaking my hand at the door, Samuel squeezed my shoulder as he passed. Bishop sat across from me, his hands folded on the now empty table. "I'm sorry it had to come to this," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel sorry or relieved. "I'm filing with the probate court on Monday," Bishop said. "The inheritance will be frozen until January." "What happens next?" I asked. "If there's no proof of coercion, Taylor receives the money. If there is, I can extend the delay or redirect the funds into a trust with conditions." I nodded slowly. "Will she be okay?" Bishop considered the question. "Financially, eventually, emotionally." He paused. "That depends on her." He stood and gathered his briefcase. "Hi, Mr. Clark, you did the right thing." "Then why do I feel like I just lost her again?" Bishop didn't have an answer. "Connor called that weekend. I filed for annulment Friday afternoon," he said. His voice was tired. "Grounds fraud. She lied about finances and allowed her mother to manipulate our family." "Have you talked to her?" "She won't answer my calls," Connor said. "I went to the apartment yesterday. She's gone, moved out. I think she's staying with Pamela." I closed my eyes. That's the worst place she could be. "I know," Connor said quietly. "But I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." There was a long silence. "My dad's handling the paperwork," Connor continued. "It should be finalized in 6 weeks. Taylor hasn't contested it. I don't think she will." "I'm sorry, Connor. Just don't be." His voice was firm. "Mr. Clark, thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. My dad said the same thing you did, that love isn't about control or obligation. It's about showing up." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house and stared at the wall. Kimberly Stone called on Monday. "I saw Taylor yesterday," she said without preamble. "She's not okay." "Where?" "I went to Pamela's apartment. Taylor answered the door. She looked hollow, like she hadn't slept in days." I gripped the phone. "Did she say anything?" Pamela was in the background yelling on the phone about money, something about creditors and payment plans. Taylor just sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Kimberly's voice cracked. "She asked about you. She said, 'Is Dad okay?' I told her you were hurting too." "What did she say?" She started crying. Then Pamela came over and told me to leave. I exhaled slowly. "Thank you for trying, Kimberly." "I'm not giving up on her," Kimberly said. "I just wanted you to know she's thinking about you." I went back to work the next day. Gloria looked up when I walked into the office. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "I don't know yet," I said. She nodded and handed me a stack of messages. Life went on. That afternoon, Kayla Henderson came by the office. She was one of the scholarship students I'd been funding through Portland State, bright, hard-working, studying landscape architecture. "Mr. Clark, I heard you're increasing the scholarship fund," she said, her eyes shining. Thank you. It means everything. You've earned it, Kayla, I said. She smiled, then hesitated. My mom wanted me to tell you something. She said people like you are rare. People who give without expecting anything back. I felt something tighten in my chest. Your mom's a wise woman. After Kayla left, I sat at my desk and thought about Taylor. She used to be like that. Grateful, humble, full of light. I wondered if I'd ever see that version of her again. That night, I sat in my study and opened the box one more time. The Father's Day card was still there, tucked beneath the photos and receipts and memories. Best dad ever. I wondered if Taylor still believed that, or if Pamela had convinced her I was someone else entirely. I closed the box and turned off the light. Now I just had to wait. At the end of July, my phone rang at 11 at night. It was Taylor. She didn't say hello. Can we talk? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat up straight, my heart pounding. Yes, I said. Anytime. Do you want to meet somewhere or? Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, unsteady shaking. I thought I was ready, she whispered. I thought I could do this. But I'm not. I can't. Taylor, I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand. I called back immediately. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. I tried again the next morning. No answer. And again that afternoon. Nothing. The months leading to that call had been long and silent. June. I didn't hear from Taylor in June. Connor called on the 15th. The annulment's finalized, he said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the exhaustion beneath it. It's done. How are you holding up? Better, he said. My dad says it takes time to stop loving someone. I'm starting to believe him. A few days later, Kimberly called. She moved out of Pamela's apartment, Kimberly said. She's staying with a friend from her MBA program, somewhere in Southeast, I think. She's keeping it quiet. Is she okay? She's surviving, Kimberly said carefully. That's all I can tell you. I sent Taylor a text that night. I'm still here when you're ready. She didn't respond. July. In mid-July, Kimberly called again. She got a job, she said. Receptionist at a medical clinic downtown. It doesn't pay much, but she's working. She's not depending on anyone. That's good, I said quietly. She's trying Mr. Clark. I know it doesn't feel like it, but she really is. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. I grabbed it groggy and confused. Hello, silence. Then soft breathing. I just wanted to hear your voice, Taylor whispered. I was fully awake now. Taylor, are you okay? I can't talk yet. She said, her voice thick with tears. But I will. Soon. I promise. The line went dead. I lay awake the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. A week later, she called again. Can we talk? And then she hung up. August. After that call, I didn't reach out. I knew she needed space. But Kimberly kept me updated. Pamela's being evicted, Kimberly said in early August. She's been calling Taylor nonstop asking for money. Taylor finally blocked her number. Goodako, I said. She's getting stronger, Kimberly said. Slowly. But she is. A few days later, Bishop called. Hatikrichot. Pamela Thornton filed a motion to contest the inheritance freeze, he said. She claimed undue hardship and asked the judge to release the funds early. My stomach tightened. And the judge denied it, Bishop said. But here's the interesting part. Taylor sent me a letter. She's requesting that if she's not emotionally prepared to accept the inheritance by January, the entire amount be donated to a scholarship fund in Thomas Westfield's name. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. She doesn't want the money. She wants to make sure she wants it for the right reasons, Bishop said. That's growth, Mr. Clark. September. In mid-September, Kimberly called with an update. She's seeing a therapist, she said. Twice a week. She told me it's the hardest thing she's ever done. That takes real courage, I said. She talks about you a lot, Kimberly said quietly. She says she doesn't know how to face you, that she's afraid you'll never forgive her. I stared out the window at the trees in my backyard. Tell her she doesn't have to face me, I said. She just has to be honest with herself. Kimberly was quiet for a moment. I'll tell her. October. On a Sunday morning in early October, my phone rang. This time I recognized the number. Hello? Hi, Dad. My throat tightened. Hi, sweetheart. I said, my voice thick. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing shaky and uncertain. Hi, I'm sorry, she said, and then she was crying deep, wrenching sobs. I'm so sorry for everything. I know, I said gently. I don't know how to explain what happened, she said through tears. I don't know how I let her convince me how I became that person. I said softly, you don't have to explain it all right now. She took a shaky breath. Can I see you? She asked. Not right away. But soon I need to finish something first. Then we can really talk. Is that okay? That's okay, I said. I'll be here. After we hung up, I walked out to the backyard. The maple tree I'd planted when Taylor graduated high school stood tall and strong, its branches reaching toward the autumn sky. It had grown so much healthy, steady-rooted deep. I thought about roots, how deep they go, how they hold everything together even when the surface looks broken. Maybe that's what we were doing, replanting the roots. November arrived cold and quiet. Bishop called on the 5th. The 6-month freeze ends in January, he said. I'll need Taylor's decision on the inheritance by then. I'll ask her, I said. The truth was, I still hadn't seen her. We'd talked twice more after that October call, short conversations, careful and tentative like we were learning each other's language again. And then 2 weeks into November, my phone buzzed with a text. Can you meet me at your office Saturday at 10? I want to show you something. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, I'll be there. November was quiet, but the morning I arrived at Harold Bishop's office, the sun was out. Taylor was already there, sitting at the same conference table where everything had fallen apart 6 months earlier. She looked different, thinner, older. Lines around her eyes I didn't remember, but her eyes were clear. She stood when I walked in. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. Hi, sweetheart, I said. There was an awkward moment, neither of us sure whether to hug or shake hands, or just stand there. Bishop stepped in smoothly. Please sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs. Ms. Clark requested that I facilitate this meeting. We sat across from each other, the table between us. Taylor folded her hands, took a breath. I wanted you here when I decide about the money, she said. You don't owe me an explanation, I said. Yes, I do, she said, her voice firm. Taylor looked down at her hands. I spent the last 6 months in therapy, she said. Twice a week, trying to understand how I became the person who could do what I did. She looked up at me. I said, Pamela told me you were controlling, that you used money to make me dependent on you, that you made me feel like I owed you something. I didn't say anything, and I believed her. Taylor said, her voice breaking. Because it was easier than admitting the truth, which was that I was ungrateful, she whispered. You gave me 24 years. You paid for college, for my MBA, for my apartment, my car, my insurance. You showed up to every graduation, every milestone. And I didn't even invite you to my wedding. Tears slid down her face. I don't know how to fix that, she said. I don't know how to make up for what I did. You don't need to fix it, I said quietly. You just need to learn from it. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I did learn, she said, about who I was and who I don't want to be anymore. Who do you want to be? She looked at me, her eyes red but steady. Someone worthy of a second chance. Bishop cleared his throat gently. Ms. Clark, the probate freeze ends in January. What have you decided about the inheritance? Taylor took a breath. I want to donate it. I blinked. Taylor, that's $300,000. I know, she said, but I shouldn't keep it. She turned to me. Thomas Westfield was my biological father, but he didn't raise me. You did. If he wanted to give me something, he should have given me the chance to know him. But he only left money. She shook her head. I don't want money I didn't earn. Not anymore. I don't want to be someone who takes without giving back. She looked at Bishop, then back at me. I want to create a scholarship fund, she said. For kids in foster care. Kids who need someone to believe in them when no one else does. Her voice was steady now. I'm calling it the Second Chance Fund. I couldn't speak. Dad, she said softly. Will you help me run it? I nodded, my throat tight. Yes, I managed. I'd be honored. Bishop reached into his briefcase and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. Before we finalize anything, he said, there's one more thing. He slid the envelope across the table to Taylor. Her name was written on it in careful, shaky handwriting. This is from Thomas, Bishop said. He asked me to give it to you when you made your decision. Taylor stared at it for a long moment. Then she opened it. She read silently, her lips moving slightly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and handed it to me. You should read it, she said. I unfolded it. Dear Taylor, I never met you, but I've watched over you from a distance for years. Your mother wouldn't let me be part of your life, and I respected that decision even though it broke my heart. But I need you to know something. I'm proud of you. Not because of anything I did. I had no part in making you who you are. The man who raised you, Raymond Clark, is the father you deserve. I'm just biology. He's love. Use this money to build something good the way he taught you. With all my respect, Thomas, I folded the letter and set it on the table. I thought about the man I'd never met. Thomas Westfield gave Taylor life. I gave her 24 years. He gave money. I gave memories. And in the end, Taylor chose what mattered most. Not biology. Not money. Love. We left the office together. Portland in November was cold. The air sharp and clean. Taylor stopped on the sidewalk and turned to me. Can I buy you coffee? She asked. I looked at her. Really looked. And for a moment I saw the little girl who used to hold my hand when we crossed the street. I'd like that, I said. We walked 2 blocks to a small cafe near the waterfront. For the first time in 6 months we talked. Not about Pamela. Not about money. About the future. About second chances. About family. 3 weeks after the scholarship announcement, I sat at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning reading the local paper. A small article on page 4 caught my eye. Local woman establishes $300,000 scholarship fund for foster children. I read it twice. The article mentioned the Second Chance Fund, its mission to support kids aging out of foster care, and the application process launching in January. Taylor's name was at the bottom, listed as founder and director. Mine wasn't there. She'd done that on purpose. I set the paper down and stared out the window at the gray December sky. Part of me had wondered if she'd include my name out of gratitude or obligation or habit. But she hadn't, and I understood why. This was hers. She needed it to be. My phone rang. Dennis. I read it, he said without preamble. You okay? She didn't want my name on it, I said. She wants the scholarship to stand on its own. Now that's maturity, Dennis said. Hard-won but real. Yeah, I said quietly. It is. We talked for a few more minutes. Work stuff, a job bid coming up, and then the doorbell rang. I've got to go, I said. I opened the door to find Taylor standing on my front step, holding 2 grocery bags. She was wearing jeans and an old Portland State hoodie I'd bought her years ago. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail and she looked nervous. Hi, she said. I thought I'd cook dinner. Like we used to. I stepped aside. Come in. She set the bags on the counter and started unpacking chicken breasts, panko breadcrumbs, marinara sauce, mozzarella, fresh garlic, a baguette. Chicken parmesan, I asked. You taught me, remember, she said, glancing over her shoulder. And garlic bread. Your recipe. I remember. She pulled out a cutting board and handed me a knife without asking. I started peeling garlic cloves, and she began pounding the chicken breasts flat with the back of a skillet. We fell into the old rhythm, me chopping, her preparing the breading station, both of us moving around the small kitchen, like we'd done it 100 times before, because we had. The kitchen filled with the smell of butter and garlic as I toasted bread slices in the oven. Taylor hummed softly while she worked a tune I didn't recognize. Our new song, I asked. My therapy playlist, she said, glancing at me with a small smile. My therapist says music helps with grounding. Does it? Sometimes, she said. She dipped chicken into beaten eggs, then pressed it into panko crumbs. Her hands were steady, but I noticed the slight tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing at me like she was waiting for something. I talked to Connor last week, she said after a moment. I looked up from the garlic. How's he doing? Good, she said. Really good, actually. He's seeing someone new, a paralegal at his dad's firm. He seems happy. She set down a piece of breaded chicken and turned to me. He told me you called him after the annulment was finalized. I wanted to make sure he was okay, I said. What did you say to him? I set down the knife. I told him he did the right thing, that walking away from someone you love takes courage, and that I was proud of him. Taylor's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. You've always been good at that, she said quietly. Taking care of people who hurt you. I didn't know what to say to that. She went back to the chicken, her hands moving a little faster now. I don't know how you do it, she said. How you forgive people like that. Practice, when I said. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. An hour later, we sat at the kitchen table with plates of chicken parmesan and garlic bread between us. The marinara was a little too salty. Taylor had forgotten how much I usually added, but neither of us mentioned it. For a while we just ate. Then Taylor set down her fork. I need to tell you something, she said. I waited. She took a breath. Pamela told me you'd ruin my wedding day, she said. She said if I invited you, you'd make it all about yourself, that you couldn't stand not being in control. Her voice was steady, but her hands were trembling. I believed her because she's my mother, and I wanted her to love me so badly that I ignored everything I knew about you. She looked down at her plate. The morning of the wedding, I wrote your name on an invitation, she said. I was sitting at the kitchen table and I just wrote it. I was going to send it. I set down my fork. Pamela came in and saw it on the counter. Taylor continued. Her voice was thick now. She picked it up, read it, and tore it in half, right in front of me. Then she said, you have to choose Taylor, who's really special to you. A tear slid down Taylor's cheek, and I chose wrong, she whispered. I let her throw the pieces in the trash, and I didn't say anything. I chose her, and I've regretted it every single day since. On Taylor, I threw away 24 years like they meant nothing, she said, her voice breaking. Like you meant nothing. I stood and walked around the table. Not they meant everything to me, I said. And they meant everything to you. You just forgot for a while. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. Mada, I know, I said. And I forgave you the moment you called to apologize. She stood, and for the first time in 8 months, I pulled her into a real hug. She collapsed against me, sobbing deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I held her and let her cry my own throat tight. I love you, she said into my shoulder. I should have said that more. I love you too, I said quietly. I never stopped. We stood there for a long time, her tears soaking into my shirt, my hand on the back of her head, the way I used to hold her when she was small. Eventually, her breathing steadied. She pulled back, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand. Sorry, she said, her voice hoarse. I got your shirt wet. It'll dry, I said. She laughed a small broken sound and sat back down. We finished dinner. We talked about small things, work, the weather, a documentary she'd watched. We argued about movies. She still thought The Godfather was overrated. I still disagreed. It wasn't perfect. There were still quiet moments. Still things we didn't say. Wounds that would take more than one dinner to heal. But it was real, and for the first time in months, I felt like my daughter had truly come home. When she was leaving, Taylor stopped at the door and turned back to me. "Next week, I want to show you something," she said. "The first scholarship recipient. Her name's Kayla Henderson. You'll want to meet her." I smiled. "I already know Kayla," I said. "She's been working for me for 2 years." Taylor's eyes widened. "You gave her a job." "I gave her a chance," I said. "She came in looking for summer work during her sophomore year. Hard-working, honest, reminded me of someone." I looked at Taylor. "Reminded me of you." Taylor stared at me for a long moment, her eyes shining. Then she nodded slowly. "Then we're doing this right." On the Saturday morning before Christmas, I met Taylor at a community garden on the east side of Portland. She'd asked me to bring a shovel. When I arrived, she was standing next to a young maple sapling no taller than my waist, its roots wrapped in burlap. "We're going to plant this," she said. The ground was cold and hard, but we took turns digging. Taylor worked carefully, measuring the hole with her hands, checking the depth. I watched her the way I used to when she was small, focused, determined, doing it right. "I wanted to plant something to remember this year," she said, setting down the shovel. "Something that will grow." We lifted the sapling together and lowered it into the hole. You know what I learned in therapy," she said, kneeling beside the tree. "About roots." I knelt beside her. "They told me roots go deeper than you think," she said. "Even when you try to cut them, even when you think they're gone, they're still holding everything together underneath." She looked at me. "You're my roots, Dad. Even when I tried to cut them, they held." I didn't trust myself to speak. We filled in the dirt together, packing it down around the base of the tree. 24 years from now," Taylor said quietly, "this tree will be strong. People will sit under it in the summer, and they won't know where it came from or who planted it." She brushed dirt off her hands. "But we will." I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "We will." That afternoon, we held the official launch event for the Second Chance Fund at my office. Gloria had decorated the conference room with simple white lights and a banner Kimberly had made. Dennis stood by the coffee station talking to Bishop. Kayla Henderson sat in the front row, flanked by 3 other scholarship applicants' kids, aging out of foster care, all of them nervous and hopeful. Taylor stood at the front of the room, a folder of notes in her hands. "I thank you all for coming," she said. Her voice was steady. "This fund exists because someone taught me that love isn't biology. It's presence." She looked at me. "My father, Raymond Clark, gave me 24 years of presence. When I forgot that when I threw it away, he didn't give up. He waited. And when I was ready, he was still there." Her voice wavered slightly. "But this scholarship is for kids who need someone to be there. Someone to believe in them when no one else does." She turned to Kayla. "Our first recipient is Kayla Henderson. She's a junior at Portland State studying landscape architecture, and she's proof that one chance, one person who believes in you can change everything." Kayla stood wiping her eyes. "Mr. Clark believed in me when I had nothing," she said. "He gave me a job when I was 19 and didn't know what I was doing, and now I get to pass that forward. I'll use this scholarship to finish my degree, and then I'll do what he did, give someone else a chance." Dennis leaned over and whispered, "You did good, Ray." I nodded, my throat tight. Christmas came 5 days later. My house was full. Gloria brought her famous mac and cheese. Dennis and his wife brought wine. Kimberly brought her 2 kids who ran circles around the living room. Kayla came with her girlfriend, both of them shy and sweet. Bishop stopped by with a tin of cookies from his wife. And Taylor. Taylor was there helping me set the table, laughing at Dennis's terrible jokes, teaching Kimberly's kids how to fold napkins into swans. Halfway through the evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Connor Matthews standing on the porch holding a wrapped gift. "Hey," he said. "I hope it's okay that I stopped by. I won't stay long." "Come in," I said. He handed me the gift, a bottle of whiskey, the good kind. "For you," he said. "Merry Christmas." Taylor saw him from the kitchen and walked over. There was a moment of awkwardness. Then Connor smiled. "You look good, Taylor," he said. "So do you," she said. They hugged, brief, friendly, like old friends. "I'm glad you're doing well," Connor said. You too," Taylor said. "I heard about everything. I'm happy for you." "Thanks," Connor said. He glanced at me. "Take care of each other." "We will," I said. After he left, Taylor came and stood beside me. "That was good," she said quietly. "Him stopping by." "Yeah," I said. "It was." Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Taylor and I sat in the living room. Snow was falling outside the window, soft, silent, blanketing the street. "Do you think Thomas would be proud?" Taylor asked suddenly. I looked at her. "Of what you did with the money?" She nodded. "I think he'd be grateful," I said. "You turned his money into something good, into hope. That's more than most people do." She was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "Merry Christmas, Dad." It was the first time she'd called me that, really called me that, since everything fell apart. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," I said. I looked out at the snow and thought about everything. The betrayal, the pain, the truth, the healing. It wasn't a perfect ending. Pamela was still out there somewhere, probably blaming the world for her problems. Connor had his own life now, and that was as it should be. But we were here, together, and that was enough. Taylor would finish her MBA in the spring. She was working part-time for the scholarship fund, rebuilding her life one day at a time. And I was doing the same. Before she left that night, she hugged me at the door. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." I held her tight. "I'm your father," I said. "That's what fathers do." She pulled back and smiled the same smile I'd seen 1,000 times before when she was 5 years old and learning to tie her shoes when she was 18 and graduating high school. When she was 29 and learning what love really meant. I saw the little girl in that smile, and I knew we were going to be okay. Biology doesn't make a family. Love does. We are living proof. And to you listening to this family story, remember this. I'm Raymond Clark. I'm 62 years old, and I've lived through something I never thought I'd survive the day my daughter told me I wasn't special enough to attend her wedding. The day I realized the person I'd raised for 24 years had chosen a stranger over me. But here's what I learned, and I'm telling you this now, because I wish someone had told me. First lesson: biology doesn't make you a father. Love does. Presence does. Showing up every single day, even when it's hard, even when you're not appreciated, that's what makes you family. God gave me Taylor not through blood, but through choice. And that choice, that commitment, was more real than any DNA test could ever prove. Second lesson: forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. When Taylor came back, when she finally understood what Pamela had done, I could have held on to my anger. I could have made her beg. That's what dad revenge looks like in the movies, cold, calculated, making them suffer the way you suffered. But God teaches us differently. Real revenge isn't about punishing someone who hurt you. It's about becoming so whole, so healed, that their betrayal can't break you anymore. My dad revenge was forgiveness, and it set us both free. Third lesson: don't wait for people to realize your worth to know you have it. I spent months wondering if I mattered, if 24 years meant anything. And the truth is, they did, whether Taylor remembered or not. God sees every sacrifice, every midnight drive, every college tuition payment, every moment you chose love over pride. Your worth isn't determined by whether people acknowledge it. It's determined by whether you lived it with integrity. Now let me tell you what I'd say to my younger self, and to you if you're facing something similar. Don't be like I was. Don't tie your entire identity to being needed. I built my life around Taylor, and when she rejected me, I thought I'd lost everything. But you are more than one relationship. You are more than one family story. Don't let manipulation win by becoming bitter. Pamela tried to make me the villain. She almost succeeded, not because I was controlling, but because I could have become bitter enough to prove her right. Don't give toxic people that power. Don't give up on people, but don't lose yourself waiting for them either. I waited for Taylor. I gave her space. But I also kept living, kept working, kept serving others, kept planting seeds that would grow, whether she came back or not. That's the balance. Here's my personal belief, and I say this as someone who's lived it. A family story isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's not about never being hurt. It's about choosing to heal. And sometimes the greatest dad revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal turn you into someone you're not. Taylor and I are rebuilding. We planted a tree together last week, a maple sapling that will outlive both of us. In 24 years, it'll be strong and tall, and people sitting under it won't know where it came from. But we will, and that's enough. So here's what I'm asking you. If this family story meant something to you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, or if you've ever had to choose between bitterness and grace, leave a comment below. Tell me, what would your revenge look like? Would it be cruelty, or would it be healing? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's waiting for an apology that may never come. Someone who needs permission to forgive or permission to move on. And subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this. Real, raw human stories about what it means to love imperfectly and keep trying anyway. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for listening to my family story. Thank you for witnessing my dad revenge, the kind that doesn't destroy, but rebuilds. Before you go, I need to tell you something. The stories that follow may contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this type of content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. I respect your choice, but if you stay, I promise you this. Every story I share will be honest. Every lesson I teach will be earned. Take care of each other. And remember, love isn't biology. Love is showing up.